I chose the worst time of day to film this, right before lunchtime. And filming makes me really hungry. So I brought a snack. Today's mug features Tinkerbell as a pirate. This comes from Disneyland Paris. I've had this a long time. It's very cute. Tinkerbell as a pirate, and there's little jewels on it, and on the back it says Petite Pirate, and there's a skull and crossbones, and one of the eyes is a little gemstone. Then there's this lovely pattern around the inside. It's a very cute mug. Well, anyway, hi, I'm Fiona. I am a massive Disney nerd. I will be going back to Walt Disney World next summer in 2025. So I am taking you along the planning journey with me. If you're only joining me now, you might want to check out the first episode of this series. Might be a good help. It's sort of an introduction episode. So you're going to hear about what I'm going to talk about and just sort of a basic rundown of what actually Disney World is and the different vocabulary that I'm going to be talking about. I will be putting them all in a playlist, so you'll be able to find it there, or I'll be able to link it in the description box below as well. My puppy is barking. So this is sort of episode 2, and this is where I'm going to talk to you about the accommodation options available at Disney World. Personally for me, I feel like when I know what kind of accommodation is on offer, what kind of price brackets we're talking about, then I feel like I can get a good sense of how much to budget. I feel like if you stay on site at Disney, depending of course on like where you stay and how long your trip is and stuff like that, I feel like a large chunk, if not the majority, at the very least like a very substantial amount of your spending will go to your accommodation. So I always feel like that's kind of the clearest point to get the ball rolling and think to yourself, how much do I need to spend? How much can I spend? How much will I need to save for? Before I get into it all, if you enjoy the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any videos and that you don't miss any part of this series. I'm going to be talking about the parks themselves, the attractions, the dining options, add-on experiences, like different fun extra things you can do. I'm going to be talking about like your countdown planning, so what you're going to be doing in the couple of months or weeks leading up to your trip. So it will be a long spanning series, so make sure you stay tuned and don't miss a video. For this series I focus primarily on the Disney services offered, Disney accommodation and Disney partnered accommodation. So you have your Disney property resorts, which are going to be owned and operated by Disney and on the Disney property itself. And then you have Disney partner hotels, which are going to be in the surrounding area and tend to be a slightly more budget-friendly option. Of course, as the case with anything, there are different tiers within that, but in general that does tend to be a little bit more of a budget-friendly way, and that you are that little bit outside the Disney bubble. Those partner hotels, they're also often referred to as good neighbor hotels. So they offer some of the similar perks that staying on site at Walt Disney World would, but not all of them, and they are not owned and operated by Disney. They are usually their own things. You've got Hiltons, you've got Marriott's, you've got Four Seasons. So you have other hotel chains operating these resorts in the area, and they do work in partnership with Disney World to be able to provide some of the same perks. So some of those perks that you're going to notice would be a free shuttle service to and from Disney parks. You will also get the early park entry, which is available to Disney World Resort guests. That means you get into any of the 4 parks 30 minutes before they open to the general public in the morning, which can be a massive help when it comes to getting in line for a very big popular attraction. Some of the resorts also offer discounts throughout Disney Springs, which is the dining and retail location in Disney World. Some of the hotels also offer more general hotel facilities like spa and fitness centers, which actually aren't that common in Disney World resorts. You are usually in the top tier of Disney World resorts before you start seeing those. So if that's something that you like out of a hotel when you go away, that's something to bear in mind. In my research, I found that the price doesn't vary drastically throughout different times of the year, because you always are going to have your peak and your off-peak times, and that will always influence the price of things. But I find that that is quite drastic on Disney properties, where these partner hotels, now this is just my own research, it's not a definitive answer but in my own research I was finding that the prices were more or less level. You didn't see like a massive spike in the summer. It was only just maybe like a normal kind of peak time. So the cheapest of these options, again in my own personal research, I was finding them to be cheaper than the cheapest Disney options. So I was seeing prices starting as low as $90 per night in some of the lower tier hotels. That can kind of go up into the 100-200s, and then you're going to see more of a mid-range within sort of like 200 to 400, and then there are going to be your high level top tier hotels as well, and they are going to be closer to the $1,000 mark per night. One of these resorts is actually the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Resort. It is technically not a Disney resort, even though it is still in the name. I'm not quite sure why actually, but I always find that they're kind of like a bridge between the on-site and the off-site hotels, in that they are very close to the other Disney World resorts and the parks, but because they're so close to the actual Disney World itself, the boat transportation is actually offered there as well. You can also get some of the extended evening hours with the more expensive hotels only, in the same way that the Disney World resort hotels, when you're staying in what they call the Deluxe Resorts, that you get to stay on in the parks. Some evenings you get to stay on later. That's a nice perk if you're more of a night owl and you don't want to use those early hours, or if you just want to maximize your time entirely. Some of the more expensive partner hotels will also offer that. So now we're going to talk about the actual Disney resorts themselves. So these are owned and operated by Disney. They're on Disney property. They all offer at least one form of complimentary transportation. That would be the bus. So every resort has a bus route that goes to parks and to Disney Springs. All of these resorts count for the early magic hours as well, so that 30 minutes early entry. They are obviously Disney themed to some degree or another, and different themes as well throughout the different resorts. So if you like to really still be in that Disney bubble when you're at Disney, the Disney resorts themselves are going to be great for that, because you're going to see little influences of characters, movies, all the different theming around the place. So you have like your three main categories, which would be value, so the cheapest level, moderate, which is your middle, and deluxe, which is your higher end prices. There is also DVC, which stands for Disney Vacation Club. So this is sort of like a timeshare program with Disney. There are certain DVC resorts. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be a DVC member to stay there. There's different kinds of accommodation associated with the DVC. So say DVC rooms are usually villas, meaning that they usually have some level of a kitchen, even just a little kitchenette, and often laundry appliances within the accommodation as well. They're more like a self-service apartment kind of setup. So that's great if that's something that's kind of your preference, if you would prefer to actually eat in your room a lot of times, or if you know you're going to have lots of laundry to do. Of course, each resort does offer laundry facilities, but it's more like a laundromat, and that you have to pay for each appliance and each use. Where if you have that in your room already, you're set. I know a lot of people comment on if they have small children, it's great because of the amount of laundry that you need to do around small children, and to constantly be paying to use the machines, it would add up. So if that's something that you like to know, and if you like to be able to have that kitchen facility, DVC villas can be really, really helpful for that. All of the resorts also offer outdoor activities, so you'll have playgrounds, you'll have campfires, you'll have movies under the stars, where they just project a movie onto the side of a building or a big screen, which again can really add to the experience if that's something you really like to do. If you don't want to be in the parks all the time and you'd like to have kind of a slower day at your resort, or chill out in the evening and watch a movie outside, it can be really nice. And as I mentioned, they do have the self-service laundry facilities, so every resort will offer that, but you do pay, last time I was there it was $3 per wash and $3 per dry. So you get a 30-minute wash cycle for $3, and you get a 30-minute or an hour dry cycle for $3. It can add up if you have to do it a lot. I find you can kind of get away with doing it once, maybe twice on a standard trip, just to freshen up some of your clothes. They all offer parking, obviously. That's a guarantee, and each resort will offer at least one quick service. So that is, I don't like saying fast food because it makes it sound like cheap and crap and not great. Like, quick service food is actually terrific. The difference would be that you're not going to a restaurant where they seat you, they come around, take your order, they bring you your food. That's what they refer to as table service. Quick service would be you go in and you can either order it on your phone ahead of time and pick it up, or you go in and you order it, wait at a counter, and they bring it out to you, and you take it to a table in a cafeteria style setting, or you can take it to your room, or whatever you're doing. So they do all offer one quick service location at least, and one pool bar. So they don't all have like an indoor bar or lounge setting. The value resorts, you will usually only find just a pool bar. So let's talk about those 3 tiers of the Disney World Resort hotels. So we're going to start off with the value resorts. So as I mentioned, these are your lowest price bracket. They are quite large. A lot of these resorts offer larger family size rooms. So you might be able to sleep maybe 6 people in a standard room, where in some of the other resorts you might have kind of your basic standard room, sleep 2 to 4. They more often than not feature larger than life theming. So you'll see, I'm going to put some pictures up actually. So you'll see things like, the one that always comes to mind is a giant pongo. Put a picture in here for you. So this is like a 2 or 3 story tall Dalmatian. And then you're also going to have things like, say there's a sports resort, there's a giant football helmet, like giant Lion King characters, giant, Crush. There's giant sea creatures from Finding Nemo at these resorts. So they are very much a big in your face Disney theme. Really floats some people's boat, really does not float other people's boat at all. It is a very like polarizing opinion. There's no right or wrong. None of the value resorts have a table service dining option. It's only quick service, because you can often get those larger facilities that accommodate more people at a very budget friendly price. You will often see big groups there. So that could be just big family groups, groups of friends traveling together, or even say for school trips, competitions, things like that. That's where you're going to see a lot of large groups. That they're more of a high traffic area, that they're less of a kind of quiet chill resort. Again, it's not to say that they're like rowdy party city, absolutely not at all. But if you're very sensitive to those kinds of things, if you like a resort to be as slow paced and quiet as possible, these resorts may not do that for you. These resorts are also motel style, which basically means that the door to your room is on a balcony where you would be walking along, and there'd be doors to all different rooms along the one balcony there. So you will have a lot more outside exposure, which is often fine, but when the weather's crap, you're gonna notice. It can also exaggerate that noise a little bit if you've got people passing by your room, depending on where your own room is located. A lot of these buildings as well, if you're on upper floors of those buildings, a lot of times they don't actually have lifts or elevators, so you'll have to carry your luggage up, and then of course that would mean that they are less accessible. Now, that's not to say that every single room on an upper level is inaccessible. Definitely check with your resort, and if you have any particular needs around that, make sure that you discuss that with your resort when you're booking. But in general, that is the architecture of those resorts, so bear it in mind. So let's talk about the actual resorts in the value category. So in Disney World, you'll find that they sort their locations into areas. So we're going to talk about the Wild World of Sports area first. This is just a geographical system that they have for themselves. So in the introduction video, I did quickly mention that they have an ESPN complex. So that would be your Wild World of Sports area. So resorts that are quite close to that facility would be the Art of Animation, which I think it looks like a beautiful resort. I've actually never even been, I've never stayed, I've never visited. It's on my list to check out next time I'm there, because it celebrates Disney animation, which I love. Come on. Oh, you can see my power line in the background here. I am all about Disney artistry and animation and sketches and everything, and this resort showcases that beautifully. There's concept art, there's sketchwork. It looks fabulous and I can't wait to see it. This one's actually very handy because it does offer an additional mode of transportation, so you can get the Skyliner from this resort. So if you remember from my introduction video, that is an in-air gondola system. Very efficient and quite a pleasant way to travel as well if you're okay with heights. So that really adds value to this value resort. I didn't do that on purpose, I promise. This resort actually has one main large pool and two smaller pools. When a resort has multiple pools like that, it really makes a difference because the entire resort isn't catered for with just one pool, making it loud and busy and chaotic. The smaller pools, you'll often find that they're more kind of chilling out locations, that you can bring your book there, you can dip your feet in. You've got 4 areas in this resort and they're all themed to different movies. So you have your Cars area, you have a Little Mermaid section, you have The Lion King, and you have Finding Nemo. A lot of Disney resorts are dog friendly and this is one of them, if that's something you need to know about. And because you have the Skyliner, that means you have very quick and easy access to both Epcot and Hollywood Studios. I was seeing prices start in and around €255 per night. Now again, this isn't to say that they don't vary, spike and dip. This was kind of the sort of average starting price that I was seeing for different dates I was looking at. And then nearby you have the Pop Century Resort. So this is themed to each of the decades of the later 20th century. I could very quickly go into a little bit of Disney history there, in that this resort was always supposed to cover the entire 20th century. There was supposed to be an area for each decade, and they just never got around to building the second part that would cover the early decades, and it got abandoned and just left there for a while. I'll see if I can find any pictures online and throw them in. So what's cool about this one is that in the lobbies you'll find memorabilia from each of these decades. So see things like kids' toys that were popular that decade, like maybe movie posters, postcards, all those kinds of things. That's something that tickles your fancy, which it does mine. I quite appreciate some memorabilia. Make sure to check that one out, it could be right up your alley. So with each of those different areas that are themed to each decade, you're going to see the buildings are adorned with like slang words of the time. So there's going to be Disney characters from those decades featured as well. You're going to see iconography, just say like there's a giant cell phone in one of them, there's a giant Rubik's Cube. Again, this larger than life theming, and this is also accessible through the Skyliner, so again, brilliant access to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And the average price point that I was seeing was about $212 as a starting point. So our next geographical location to cover for the value resorts is the Animal Kingdom area. So the resorts geographically quite close to Animal Kingdom. These are the All-Star resorts, so you have 3 different types within that. You have All-Star Sports, All-Star Movies, and All-Star Music. All-Star Movies, that's obviously Disney movies throughout the years. The lobby actually is made to look like a cinema lobby, so it's got like the red ropes, the big light up signs to show you where like you can get like your concessions, like your food and stuff like that. It's quite cute, it's a nice idea. You have 5 different areas. So we have Mighty Ducks, which, come on, let's just talk about how underrepresented the Mighty Ducks are. So amazing that there's a whole section of a resort theme to that. Go for it. 101 Dalmatians, one of my favorites, love it. Fantasia. This is probably the resort for like all the underhyped movies. The Love Bug gets its section, so Herbie. So people of my vintage will more than likely know Herbie from the Lindsay Lohan reboot from the noughties. But there is obviously the series of films from Disney from, I think, the 60s, I think, which they're on my list. I haven't seen them. I'll get to them. Then there's also Toy Story. So if you are a diehard Toy Story fan, it's a great area for you. You are going to have that big, larger than life statues and theming and iconography from these films. So for all 3 of these resorts, it is bus transportation only, and the starting price was roughly the same across the board. I was able to find a starting price at $165. So that's gonna cover all 3 of them. So just talking about theming for the other 2, the sports one, obviously that's where that giant football helmet is. If you're very into sports, this is going to be right up your alley. I'm not at all into sports. I don't want to stay in a sports resort, thanks very much. But it does look pretty cool, in fairness. The areas are themed to surfing, surprisingly enough. Football, baseball, tennis, and basketball. The railings on the buildings look like spectator stands. And then lastly, all-star music. This one quite grabs my attention because there is a Broadway section. So they've got like the big marquees of the Disney Broadway shows. So you've got your Little Mermaid and Lion King and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast. You've also got your Calypso, which is interesting, jazz, country, and rock. All right, moving on to the Moderate Resorts, which is your middle of the road, mid-range price bracket. These offer more variety in dining options. They will often have a table service restaurant, potentially more than one, possibly lounge options, as well as just the pool bar, and more often than not then they do offer additional forms of transportation as well as just the bus. They don't quite cater to large groups as well as the value resorts do, so as I was saying, that might actually create a slightly more relaxed, quieter environment. For the most part, they are still in that motel style architecture where you have your outside buildings and you go up levels and the doors are outside on a balcony. The theming is, for the most part, a little bit more subtle, less in your face. In a good way or a bad way. And they're not quite as Disney themed, that they're more generally themed and then they find a way to get the Disney into that. They're more subtle, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Your price bracket here, you're going to see sort of 300 to 400 euro per night. Again, there will always be spikes and dips depending on time of year and even type of room that you're booking. If you're just booking your basic standard sleeps 2 to 4 people, versus if you're booking some kind of suite or larger family room or even in a preferred location, which basically might mean closer to the main buildings, closer to transport, that kind of thing. You're gonna see a little, and the view as well. You've got your, I think they call them just like garden view or whatever, which is basically just like looking out at the grounds and the car park, versus say, some of them might be on water, you might get a river view. So like there will always be reasons for differences in prices, but roughly on average, your lowest starting price, you're going to see kind of 300 to 400 euro per night. In the Disney Springs area, you have your Port Orleans resorts. So these are 2 sister resorts themed to Louisiana and New Orleans. So you have the smaller of the 2, which is French Quarter. So this is themed more to the city of New Orleans. So you have the beautiful green kind of ironwork on the buildings, very Mardi Gras heavy in the theming. It is definitely a bit smaller and more compact than some of the other ones, so people do find it quite pleasant from just an environmental perspective, that you don't have far to walk from the main building to your room, and they have these beautiful tree-lined streets. They're lovely. It can only take you by bus to the parks, but you can go by boat to Disney Springs. Port Orleans French Quarter features Scat Cats Club, which is a jazz lounge. You're going to find more southern food and beverages, so you're going to see things like beignets and po' boys and all the delicious southern treats. There is actually carriage rides available here. A lot of the resorts actually do, with like kind of bigger grounds, they do offer carriage rides, which is very cool. It's something if you wanted to do. Could be a romantic little setting, you know. It could be great for a proposal or something, like if you went on a little carriage ride around your resort. That screams proposal. This particular one does not actually have a table service restaurant, but it is walking distance to the sister resort, and there is one there. So like you will see kind of in those kind of sister resorts, you do often see kind of a bleeding of amenities. Starting price was about $313 on my research. And then its sister resort, which is Port Orleans Riverside. So this has more of a rural theming. So it's not so much the city buildings, it's more about like the Riverside buildings, these old stately mansions, you know, that kind of idea. And it is on a beautiful river setting. You have your bayou section as well. So this is like a leafy green area, a little bit more rustic. You're gonna see like Princess and the Frog theming here. So this one definitely is a larger and more sprawling resort than its sister resort. And a beneficial thing about this resort is that each of the neighborhoods, which is essentially what they call a group of the buildings, so a group of the room buildings, they will each have a quiet pool, a smaller pool that is for a smaller amount of rooms. And again, the idea is that, you know, you can just kind of go there if you're looking for a peaceful swim or a little bit of a sunbathe or whatever. And then obviously the big pool would be for activities and play. This is where the table service restaurant is. It's called Boat Rights. And again, it's that southern fare, jambalaya, shrimp and grits, that kind of thing. There is actually a functioning watermill. I shall give you a picture. Very picturesque. I'm not sure exactly how functioning it is in that if it contributes to anything on the resort. I don't think so, but it does actually visually function and turn water around. As silly as it might sound to find that impressive, it really adds to the atmosphere, I think. Again, you've got your bus transportation only for the parks, and then for Disney Springs you can take a boat. You can actually go fishing at this resort as well because it is set on a river. It is something you would have to go and book and pay for. I'm not interested in fishing, so it's not something I've experienced firsthand. But from what I've heard, it is an enjoyable experience if that's the kind of thing you want to do. Some of these resorts have additionally themed neighborhoods. In this one, you've got royal rooms. I'll try and get a picture and pop it in. So you've got like a magic carpet pattern on the carpet itself. You've got these beautiful scenes in the headboards. I think they even light up, so it looks like fireworks. The taps in the bathroom look like the genie's lamp. So anybody who's very much into like Fantasyland or whatever will be so in their element in one of those rooms. So moving over to the Epcot area, you've got the Caribbean Beach Resort. So this one is quite large and sprawling. I've stayed there personally. I actually found it fine. Say for me, I actually walk a lot anyway, so I don't really notice it being a thing if I have to walk 10 minutes between the lobby and my room. It's actually not really something that bothers me at all. For me, that's fine, and I think it's a very picturesque and scenic resort, so there's so much for the eye to take in on the walk, but I do know that it is slightly less popular for the reason of it being potentially a very far journey from A to B. It's got this like airy island beachy feel. It's so nice. Oh, it's just, and all the different neighborhoods buildings are a different color, so again, stuff for the eye to see. And that's such an underrated feature that if there's nice things to look at, it makes all the difference. Each of the neighborhoods, which are themed to different parts of the Caribbean, so you've got Jamaica, Aruba, oh, I can't list them without starting to sing the Beach Boys, so I'm not gonna do. I actually, last time I was staying here, I had a couple of drinks, and as we walked back to our room, I decided to rewrite the lyrics of that song and sing it about that resort and about Disney World, and it was great. So Weird Al better watch out. So it is set around a large lake, and there are man-made beaches around that lake, which adds again to the island feel. There's hammocks on the beach. A fabulous experience, especially if you've had maybe a drink or two. A hammock is quite fun. I believe there is even beach volleyball available. This does have a table service restaurant. It's called Sebastian's, for Sebastian from Little Mermaid. Quite intimate and small, but it does serve Caribbean inspired food, which is sort of unique. You don't see that in a lot of places around Disney World. The Caribbean Beach Resort is the home of the Skyliner, so it's like the Skyliner hub is what it's called. So essentially the Skyliner has sort of like two different routes. So if you're on, say, let's just call it Route A, if you want to get somewhere on Route B, you have to get off a Caribbean Beach Resort and get on a new line, in the same way that like say the London Underground or whatever might work. Obviously not nearly as big, but there are two different lines. So if you're staying at the Caribbean Beach Resort, it just removes an extra step that you can get anywhere you need to be from the one place. You don't have to swap lines. And that's your direct, easy access to Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And of course your buses everywhere as well. When I say it is a very short walk, it is a very, now of course it depends on what part of the resort your room is, but the lake that it is set around, I'll put a screenshot of the map here, because the lake that it is set around, the Riviera is on that same lake. So the Riviera is one of the deluxe resorts. It is a bucket list resort for me. I desperately want to stay there. It's so beautiful. I will obviously be talking about it in the deluxe section of this video. The amount of times that like staying in that resort, I stayed in Jamaica, which isn't even the closest of the neighborhoods to the Riviera, but when I say it was such a short walk to get from my room to the Riviera resort, it was so handy. You know, we went there for breakfast a few times. You can just wander up and it doesn't feel like you're even leaving your resort. So very convenient. You can kind of like siphon some of the some of the perks of that deluxe resort. Obviously there's a lot you can't do, like you can't use another resort's pool, and then obviously you won't get your deluxe perks of the evening hours, all that sort of stuff. But like you can wander up there, you can use their quick service food, their table service food of course as well, their bars. There's so much that you can enjoy from a neighboring resort. So like that, if you didn't have the budget to stay in the Riviera resort and you were staying in the Caribbean beach resort, you can definitely grab some of those perks. You can still avail of the fantastic food that they serve there, the gorgeous drinks, the beautiful scenery. Back onto the Caribbean beach resort, you're gonna see that pirate theming kind of around the place. So the main pool area is like a pirate fortress sort of theme. There's cannons along the water's edge. Just really adds to it if you forget that that's the theming. And then all of a sudden you stumble across a cannon. It's quite fun, you know. Something I really like about the theming of Disney resorts is that sometimes you can forget that you're in them, and then all of a sudden it just hits you in the face and you remember where you are, and it's great. This one starts at about $312 per night. The Skyliner had kind of upped that price a little bit when it opened. I think it used to be potentially maybe one of the cheaper of the moderates, but adding that Skyliner in really like upped the value of it. And then we have the Coronado Springs Resort, which is in the Animal Kingdom area. The Animal Kingdom area is kind of tricky because it's not served by monorail, it's not served by boat, it's not served by Skyliner. So you're really just reliant on the buses. That being said, the resort itself is fabulous and really elevated by the addition of the Gran Destino Tower. The Gran Destino Tower only opened in 2019. I actually would have thought it was earlier than that, but it really massively elevated this resort. So again, this is one of the large sprawling motel style resorts. It's got your kind of Spanish, Mexican and Southwest American influences. Before the tower went in, it would have been just kind of standard run-of-the-mill, same way that the others were. It's absolutely stunning. It is such a luxurious feel for a moderate resort. It's actually themed to a little-known animated short that was a collaboration between Walt Disney and Salvador Dali. Very, very obscure, absolutely stunning, and actually that short plays throughout that tower as well, and like the lounges and stuff. It's beautiful. Dining and drinks option in this tower is absolutely stunning. Oh my gosh, you've got like your tapas and steak restaurant called Toledo. You have Dahlia Lounge, which is a bar up on the top floor, so you get these stunning panoramic views around the place. You can just make out certain landmarks of the parks. Very, very cool that if you get a good clear day, you can see so many cool things. And then you also have kind of a more casual lounge area, Barcelona Lounge. So that's where you're gonna get like stuff throughout the day as well. You're gonna get your coffees and your pastries and stuff there as well. And then you also will have your, as I mentioned, your standard motel style rooms that spread around the rest of the resort as well. And this resort is often used for conferences. It's actually kind of partly a conference center resort. So it is slightly less Disney themed, and it is the only moderate that has a spa and fitness facility. Other dining and drinks areas of note are the Three Bridges Bar and Grill. So this is essentially like a little deck island in the middle of, it's again on this large body of water, as a lot of Disney World seems to be. And you literally do have 3 bridges that you can take to access this place. It's so lovely. It's got these beautiful views. It's relaxed and cozy. It's mostly outdoor. They serve sangria there. They serve classic kind of tapas style stuff and like bigger plates as well. It's really, really lovely. It's quite hard to get into because you can't book it. So you do just have to show up and get on a wait list, which can be annoying if you don't time it right. So I guess if you were staying in the resort, that would be very easy to do. If you're a sports person, they do actually have a dedicated sports bar called Rick's. So again, your classic sports bar food, and apparently 31 TVs. So you won't miss a second of the sport ball. They also do art classes there as well. So you can do painting or mosaic class, which is such a great idea because it is such a beautiful resort and like that with such artistic roots. It's great to see that being brought into the theming as well. And again, is a lovely additional activity you can do if you're staying there. I was seeing prices at around $331 per night. Now the tower rooms will be more expensive than your standard neighborhood rooms. So there's kind of almost two different resorts within the one resort there. So definitely look into that and see which one might suit your needs and your budget more. And then lastly, in the Magic Kingdom area, there is Fort Wilderness. So this is kind of your classic American campground type theming. So these have cabins. So this resort is like a cabin style. It's 750 acres of forest in this resort. So you really are in that wilderness feel. Your cabins sleep up to 6. So again, great for bigger parties, families, that kind of thing. In a DVC style way, they do have that kitchen, and they also have a grill, a charcoal grill on the deck. You can really feel like you're camping in a cabin somewhere, and have your barbecue on the grill in the evening, or do your breakfast on there, whatever you want to do. You can rent golf carts because it's 750 acres large, so you might need one. You literally might need a golf cart to get around this resort, and that option is there. Fun story, actually, they did use this resort during COVID. That if you tested positive while you were there, they moved you to one of the cabins because they are more self-service based, so you are able to isolate better. Gives me total isolation cabin from Parent Trap vibes.
You two, the isolation cabin.
You can get a boat from here to Magic Kingdom, but everywhere else is just a bus route. There's a dinner theater experience in this resort that is quite popular. It's called Hoop-de-Doo Musical Review, but you do need to book that in advance. And again, obviously these facilities like dining and things like that, they're open to anybody from any resort or locals or the public or whatever. You don't have to stay in that resort to avail of the dining, but you know, if it's something that you feel like you're going to want to do and it's going to be a priority, or you're going to want to do it a few times, being in that resort might actually benefit you. There's also going to be camping activities here, so you've got pony rides, fishing, archery. Oh, and Chip and Dale actually have a campfire sing-along. So you have this like character experience at the resort, so pretty cool for a moderate. Because you are on that big lake around the Magic Kingdom area, you are going to get views of the electrical water pageant, which I think I mentioned in my intro video. So that is basically like these literal floats, like a parade, floating in the water, and they're just these like cute little 2D neon sign pictures and scenes, and this like quirky little music. It's very old school, and I know it's like kind of a cult favorite for a lot of people because it does have that nostalgia feel to it. So you're gonna be able to see that from this resort. And fun fact about this resort is actually it's where a lot of the Disney horses are homed. It's where the stables are. So Disney does use horses for things like, say, the parades. You'll see some horses. You'll see for Disney weddings, if you get the Cinderella carriage, it's obviously pulled by horses. It's like all of those actual live real horses live at this resort. I think we've covered enough for today. Check out part 2 to learn more about the Deluxe Resorts. It could be great for a proposal. Aruba, you got Jamaica. Oh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahamas. Come on, pretty mama.